But so are you from Colorado originally?
No, I'm from Tennessee.
That's right.
I don't know any way to make that sound awesome.
I mean, Tennessee's not a bad place. Like I've been to Tennessee. Tennessee's a big music city.
It's a huge music city.
Yeah.
It's I actually grew up before it was cool. I sort of went. I lived there during that low period.
So you left Tennessee and then it got cool?
I left Tennessee, then it got cool. Apparently I should have whispered more loudly. But yeah, no, I grew up there in Middle Tennessee, Murfreesboro, just out of Nashville, and then went and got my undergraduate at University of Tennessee. I went to school at Tennessee, same time Peyton Manning was there.
Oh, okay. And did you guys cross paths at all?
Yeah, well, according to my son, we're besties.
Oh.
So, we did have a class together, which means that he showed up at one class. And that was about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you guys are still hanging out today then, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm giving him all his advice about how to deal with his Domino's Pizza franchise.
That's what I thought.
I came up with the jingle, right? With the State Farm thing. Nationwide.
Yeah.
We're
You could have had him influx his pitch a little bit because it was a little dry.
I know. Yeah, speaking of bringing it back to country music, because he's in that commercial right now where he's guiding some country singer about how to do the jingle. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So you started out there. You went to, and what did you go to school for?
Undergraduate communications at University of Tennessee. What
were you planning to do with that degree?
No idea. My grades weren't good enough to get into business school. Just putting it out there.
And these get degrees though.
And my options were either go into nursing or go into public relations because that's where the percentages with the ladies was the best. And I couldn't imagine myself being a male nurse. So I went into communications to do public relations.
So PR, and then what was your first gig right out of
First
college?
job was actually sales, internet sales for AT&T. And there's a lot of people that do a great amount of things with public relations. I'm not one of them. And so I am, I'm okay with that. So when I started to do sales for technology companies, starting out with AT&T, I really got that sort of sales, gig. And I think it's the best job to have. Your first job out of school
sales
is to be in sales of some kind. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, why is that?
It's a sink or swim situation. Number one. Number two. If it's a good organization that supports its sales efforts, they're going to give you a lot of education, a lot of training, a lot of mentoring. And you can take that with you for the rest of your career. So it's a great first step if you're in the right place and you're okay, going after and trying to kill what you eat.
Mm-hmm. And was this AT&T in Tennessee at this point?
No, I had moved to Atlanta. All of my buddies who we graduated from University of Tennessee, there really wasn't a lot of career opportunity, especially in technology, in Tennessee. So we, myself and a couple of my buddies, we moved down to Atlanta and just had some fun down there.
So sold in Atlanta at AT&T. How long were you in Atlanta for?
I was in Atlanta for about 8 years. I also got my master's. I got an MBA at Georgia Tech, an executive MBA, so the nights and weekends kind of thing. And it was a technology-focused MBA, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then worked, the rest of the time and started a family then.
Yeah. Did your parents influence you to be in the technology sector?
Yes. My dad was always a technologist, and even though he wasn't always in a field of technology was a big part of what he did, and eventually he became a CIO of a company. Oh. And so computers, technology. I mean, when I graduated in '96, early days of the internets, and so really started to. I got into doing a little bit of web design early on and playing around with that, and so my dad was a big influence there.
Yeah, and so he wanted you to go into the technology sector.
No, it was just sort of natural. I think he nerded out, and I sort of gravitated towards nerding out as well. And so it was fun for me. I love talking about technology. I love talking about human interaction with technology and how certain technologies can make people's lives better if you allow it to.
Right.
If you embrace it, and if it's a good technology.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So started with technology early on, did tech sales. What was your transition after the sales gig there?
So going from
because you went from like there to like start a family and like
right.
You know.
No, so I got duped.
Yeah.
I was working for ATT, a great organization, lots of training, amazing people. It was big, and I realized that big was not my forte pretty quickly on. But
Corporate life.
Yeah, well, I was supporting the branch down in Atlanta, and we were killing it with internet sales, and I was the one that was really leading up the internet sales effort. And so,
and when was this? What year was this?
This was 1997 through 2002, I think.
And what were internet sales at that time?
So this is going to be awesome. We were selling like 40 megabytes worth of storage space on a server for about $295 a month. Now, you want it e-commerce enabled? Awesome. That's $495 a month. And here's the best part. I was in Georgia, and my territory was all of Georgia. I remember one time I went on a sales call in Savannah. The owner of this small business that we were going out to talk about putting his retail store online, he would only talk business while whittling wood on his front porch. So I'm talking to this guy about e-commerce enabling his business while he's whittling wood on his front porch.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That was it was very interesting times.
Did you close the deal?
We did close the deal.
Nice.
We did close the deal. It was he kind of knew it was something he needed to do, and he had his, I believe it was his son that was managing the business mostly, and so this was just more of a sort of meeting to get confirmation. This is a guy who wanted to look people in the eyes, before he did a deal. So yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't gotten that yet in my sales career.
Is that right?
But we actually, Julius and I did door-to-door sales for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And him much longer. I was there for two years or whatever. And you get some weird people asking them some weird things just to like get the conversation going.
It's like going to the DMV. You never know the wide swath of people as you go door to door. I did door to door.
Did you?
It's called university directories or student directories, and it was like selling Yellow Page ads in student directories. So back in the day, right? So student directories, actual physical pieces of paper. B, selling Yellow Pages. Now, I sucked at that. I was horrible. I pretty much got kicked out before the end of the summer because I didn't have what it took to go door to door. So kudos to you guys. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know if it's it was a good thing. Yeah, definitely tough. But so AT&T Sales. What was your next gig out of that?
I had actually been I had dual citizenship between Atlanta and New Jersey at AT&T. I had taken on a headquarters job. Where I was duped was I was told that if I went into marketing, I'd make more money.
Yeah. Into the marketing department?
In the marketing department at AT&T. So I lived in New Jersey, but I went back and forth between New Jersey
and by the way, how much is 2 gigs of data or storage now? What does that cost now?
So this was 40 megs,
right?
But you can't get anything for less than like a couple of gigs on a server now.
I don't know the difference.
And it's like $3 a month. Like GoDaddy.com, $3.99 a month. Sorry, that $3.99. It's that extra 99 cents that can get you every time.
So talk about disrupted industry.
Yeah,
and it's going to be free.
Yeah,
it's all going to
pretty
be
much.
free.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it actually already is.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, circumvent a couple of things, you can get as much as you want for free these days. But the marketing thing, I was told, hey, you did such a great job selling internet services for this branch.
Yeah.
We'd like you to roll it out to all the branches, your processes and your methodology, and we're going to sort of create a training and a marketing program together.
Yeah.
So I spent most of my time in New Jersey, which is cool. Lived in Hoboken, right outside of New York. Got to go to New York, have a lot of fun, and did that marketing job for a while, and it was good as well. But I did find out that being a part of a headquarters, being a part of a large company was not my thing. It was 75% politics, 25% knowing what to do your job. And I felt more entrepreneurial than spending a lot of time helping people figure out how to approach ideas versus talking about the idea itself. And then a friend of mine back in Atlanta said, hey, there's this company. They're a startup, but they're actually making money, which was rare in the pre-bubble days.
Right.
And they're in internet security. Why don't you come and interview? Because I know you're looking to stay down in Atlanta. Come down, interview, and let's see what you got. And so I wound up taking on a product management role, so more technology oriented versus sales, and more technical versus marketing. But it was really taking feedback from users, applying that into design specs that the engineers would go and take and write code for. And that was a lot of fun. That was an internet security company that went public, and then later got acquired by IBM for $1.2 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I
was there for 4 years. I was there during that time. So that was fun. That was a rush. That was a ride. That was what everybody hopes to get. I got with my first startup experience.
Wow.
And boy, I wish I could say I was really smart, but I have a great buddy, and he called me up, and he sort of knew that this was a horse to ride in on, and he brought me along for the ride.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So, what was your experience like there? Like, what were some things that you wish you knew early on in those days in that kind of ecosphere? Because I think a lot of people find themselves in those organizations. What did it look like? What did it taste like before that stuff started happening?
So at that point, I was 24 years old, and so I thought I knew everything, and turns out I didn't know, squat. But from a macro perspective, I didn't realize how good I had it at this company. Couple of reasons why. A, they were growing. They were actually cash flow positive when nobody was cash flow positive back in the startup early days.
Yeah.
B, an amazing CEO. This guy was visionary, hands-on, sales-driven, and just a person that when he talks to you, nobody else in the universe exists. Really charismatic, but also really good at executing and really good at getting big deals done too.
Wow.
And created a fantastic organization. So I think the learning experience, so the blessing of that was, man, I like my first time, holy cow, I hit, the jackpot. My learning experience was I didn't realize how lucky I fell into this until I went to my second startup. And are we G-rated, PG-rated, PG-13F? It was cluster-fucked. It was cluster-fucked everywhere. And we survived that one, the second one. We survived it.
Are you still in contact with the CEO there? Like, is he a mentor of yours?
He's a god of mine. Like, it's
really.
Game of Thrones, they have like the gods old and new. He's definitely an old god. I really need to bring a picture to just put on my bathroom wall and pray to him every morning.
Yeah.
But just phenomenal. And then as opposed to the second one, which was this startup that was not seasoned leadership. I was actually the third person in on that. And we really cluster-fucked our way through. Now, that one...
This was still in Georgia?
Yeah, it was a company that was based out of Canada. New Brunswick, Canada. Kind of like this Atlantic time zone, which is like 1 hour to the east of Eastern time zone that you don't really know exists. But it's in Canada, so it's it's there. Unseasoned leadership, and actually not a lot of experience in technology. But the guy who found the technology was a really sharp kid. The guy who invested in it had invested in restaurants and some sports franchises, and this was kind of a hobby. And he decided to be the CEO and really had no idea what he was doing. I was the third actual official employee. And built out both the sales and marketing program out of Atlanta for this company. And I ignored everything that was going on outside of sales and marketing for this company. And I had to keep my sanity because it was such a train wreck. Now, I left that first startup before they got acquired by IBM because the company had gone from, I was the 95th employee, they had grown to 1,200 employees.
Wow.
And I realized it was starting to feel like AT&T again, right? This big company.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't for me. So I was ready to, when this company came looking to do a partnership with that first startup, the second startup looked very interesting, plus it was very early on with the company. Did that for a couple of years. And we faked it. I mean, we faked everything you could ever possibly imagine.
In the second round of
in
things?
the second startup.
Yeah.
And in fact, the reason we got our big venture capital round was because we took these VCs to a conference in DC where we were exhibiting,
Mm-hmm.
and they were kind of impressed with our technology. But we took them out for dinner and drinks, and we had a great time, and other stuff that I don't want to talk about. And we had such a great time.
I think we probably should talk about it, though.
The next morning, I'm woken by my cell phone ringing off the hook.
Uh-huh.
I overslept, missed my flight, hungover, and it was the CEO calling over and over and over and over again. Finally, I pick up the phone. I sober up enough to pick up the phone. He goes, "What the hell happened?" I said, "Well, we took him out. We had a good time. I think we stayed out later. Some of the guys, kept going out with them. I had to call it a night because I'm a lightweight. And, what's the word from you?" He goes, "Well, we just got a letter of intent on a $3 million raise."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess we really had a good time. And then from there, we grew and grew and grew. At that point, the company was growing, and we had to get another round of investment of about $10 million. And when that money came in, it was a leadership team that I knew, but I knew I wasn't going to enjoy working with. So I left. And it was good terms. It was exiting clean.
Mm-hmm.
But that company was also acquired a couple of years later by IBM.
Wow.
And I held on to the stock.
Wow.
And so that was, 2 lucky strikes. But the first one, I didn't know how lucky I had it. The second one, I really wish I was back in the first one. But it was a lot of fun. And both of them were a lot of fun for different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what brings you to what you're working on now, is that rush of getting into an organization, seeing that cusp of growth, and then watching it from there.
Yeah. It's interesting. So there's a third start. The third startup was the investor from the first startup knew I loved vacationing in Colorado, and had said, "Hey, we've got a company in Denver." And before he asked the question, I said, "Yes, fly me out." And then I met, and then I said, "Yes, relocate my things." And that moved us to Colorado. And that was...
this was after this...
After the second startup.
Okay,
right,
gotcha.
Yeah. And so the third startup, based here in Colorado, there were already about 25 people in the company. They were already doing a few $1 million worth of sales. But the reality was they kind of lucked out with some of those sales. And I ran marketing, and it was I was a vice president of marketing. There was a vice president of sales. We were organizationally aligned to butt heads and to try to throw each other under the bus in order to keep our own jobs. And it was not a clean organization from that perspective. That company wound up getting sold for pennies on the dollar about 3 years after I was there. And I wish I could have done more with that company and for that company.
Right.
But it just, there was a lot of organizational, corporate structure and lack of vision and lack of a powerful brand story that really got in the way of us getting work done and being aligned. And so I left that company after 4 years. Health reasons. I actually had a heart attack. And I was 30 at that time. So
third startup. Heart attack at 30?
Third startup, 30 years old. And I'm having these chest pains, these arm pains, the shortness of breath. I was traveling. I was in Seattle, actually.
Wow.
And I figured I must be having some kind of a panic attack. I'd never had a panic attack before. I was 30 years old, so I'd never gone to a doctor except for a broken limb, or maybe if I had a cold that I couldn't get over. And I was speaking at a conference, and I couldn't catch my breath. I just couldn't get my breath in. And
this was in the middle of giving a talk?
This is during a presentation.
Wow. And this was still here in Colorado at that time?
Well, I lived in Colorado, but I was actually in Seattle when I was giving the presentation. And I wound up, the EMTs checked me out at the airport in Seattle. And they said, "You're probably having some kind of gastrointestinal stomach, reflux thing." And they said, "You can go home." The next morning I went to the doctor, and he hooked me up to an EKG and said, "You're in the middle of a full-blown heart attack. Clear your schedule for about 3 weeks." I wound up going back to that other company after my heart attack. But literally and spiritually, my heart wasn't in it.
Yeah.
Period. Like, just, it was
What
a lot
impact, on a higher level, what impact did that have on your life, having a heart attack at 30 years old?
You know, I think there's a lot of people that ignore those signs. I did a good job of not ignoring those signs. So from that, I realized working in a company was not something that was good for me. Running a company, probably something that's good for me. And so I quickly turned in my resignation, left on good terms, and started Market Creation Group. And that was 12 years ago. And that's what got me on my way. Honestly, I didn't think I was entrepreneurial. I didn't think I was really a build a business from the ground up type of person. I always worked in the startup world where you bring an idea, you go get money, and then you start it. But doing Market Creation Group, which at the time was working with startups to be a virtual vice president of marketing.
Right.
I figured I've been a vice president of marketing a couple of times. I love working with startups, but I can't imagine going to an office every day and sitting there and dealing with a lot of the negotiations and the political realms that it takes to really be successful. And so that was a life changer, both from health, from my focus, from a lot of different areas. I decided, even if I was making a third or fourth of what I was making before, I can cut back expenses, I can live lean, and I just focus on doing what I love to do, which is telling CEOs what to do.
Right.
Hence, what you and I talked about at the beginning is being the CEO brand whisperer.
Yeah.
I love working with CEOs. In the two companies, the second and third startup, where I worked directly for the CEO, I really loved being a consigliere, for lack of a better term, of how to really communicate a brand. And in some cases I was successful, in some cases I wasn't successful. But
what were some of the unsuccessful cases?
Well, I'm talking about the second and the third
startup.
Okay,
gotcha. I thought you were talking in your business.
Well, and then in the business, I will talk about in the business. So been doing it for about 12 years, and it's had, Market Creation Group has been through a lot of iterations. The first 3 years, we grew from zero to over $1 million. We were the fastest growing private company in Colorado, in Denver, in both 2009 and 2010.
Wow.
In 2011, I was recognized as one of Denver's 40 under 40. And so that was all really cool. We had bought 2 small agencies to really grow and sort of take the strategy and manage the tactics for companies. So we grew a lot. I've always loved working with CEOs. What's worked really well is when you have a CEO that says, I'm very open-minded, and I recognize that if I have a brand in place that's a really strong brand that supports my vision and it's a story, there's a lot of stuff that becomes effortless.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of CEOs that are being told by their VCs or being told by their private equity firms, you have to do branding, you have to do marketing. And when the CEOs tend to be either technology originating, right, tech-oriented, or they are sales-oriented, where they're very face-to-face and very hand-to-hand combat, they don't get it.
Right.
And they're forced to do it by somebody else. Dad or mom, the VC dad or the VC mom, or the private equity, grandparents are saying, you need to do this.
But isn't the CEO sometimes placed as an outside person who's placed in that CEO? So how does that brand story correlate with that relationship with the CEO at that point then?
It just sort of depends. It depends on how the relationship is with the CEO and their board of directors, which is made up of their investors. Right. If a CEO has a great relationship, then it's a lot easier, and the CEO has a lot more freedom and flexibility to operate. If for some reason, let's say, half the board supports the CEO and the other half was rooting for the other guy, then there's a lot of board conflict, and that parlays into a CEO not really being able to be open with how they want their vision to be executed.
Right.
And so when there is a CEO who doesn't understand my way of thinking with branding, and I'm not saying that my way is the only way, but I do have a way that says that a brand story can be the most powerful asset you have.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I say, and I get a lot of pushback about this, that I think that the brand and your brand story is your most valuable asset, even more than employees.
Really?
Because if you don't have the right brand story that supports your vision and your mission, you're hiring the wrong people that don't know what they're supposed to do. So without a brand foundation and a brand playbook in place that's strong and is fully supported by the CEO, the investors, and the management team, you don't know what kind of employees you're going to get, or they're going to be a little bit confused about what success looks like,
right,
and what the North Star is.
So for other people, like, what is a brand story?
So,
like, what does that even mean? Is
sure.
it your vision statements? Like,
so let me go back to that nerdism that I was talking about with my dad and I. And
yeah, bring out the nerdism, man.
So I am a huge fan of Star Trek. Right, my dog, her name is Captain James Tiberius Kirk. Okay, we call her CJ.
Did you ever watch Star Trek?
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I never got into Star Trek.
Get up.
It's a little tricky.
This is over.
No, whispering more. Dude, I could, but no one introduced me to Star Trek. Is the thing is like I was never around someone who was into Star Trek. That's probably why.
Yeah.
Or I would have done it.
It's cool. I like the new generation. Like the new movies are pretty.
Yeah. Do you like the new Star Trek movies?
I do. I like what they've done with that. I like.
Are you a Star Wars fan at all?
I am a Star Wars fan, and I honestly believe that the depth of Star Wars, from a spiritual, from a sort of mentor and mentee, right? Perspective is very strong.
That's really interesting.
And I love that story, and I think that George Lucas had such depth. Honestly, I don't think Star Trek had that much depth. But it's just entertaining. And Captain Kirk is like a very charismatic son of a bitch. So I like him a lot. But back to what a brand is, the best example of a vision with a brand story is Star Trek's. To boldly go where no man has gone before. That is the most fucking amazing vision you could ever imagine. It is aspirational. It is something you could never, you can't say I've checked this off. Now, their story, their mission is, they're on a 5-year mission to seek new worlds, meet new people. And so that's really the vision and the mission that they have put together. And that creates the brand story of we're the explorers, we're the Wild West, we're the pioneers of the universe. And that's a fantastic brand story.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good example for most people. Most people understand Star Trek, and you, I think, get it at a macro level.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea. But what I have seen is when a brand encapsulates the vision, the mission, the culture, and in the world of social media, the voice that everyone should be using when talking about a company, there's an alignment.